Hi there, this is Steve Kaufman again. Going to do a little video here on memory. This is a request from one of my viewers, Wakako. What do I consider to be the role of memory in language learning? I'd like to start with an example that I got from Oscar, one of our link members in Spain. We just had a conversation in Spanish. And we talked about memory, and he said, it's a bit like driving a car. When we drive a car, we do everything automatically because we have basically ingrained the habits, the patterns, all the things we need to do in order to drive a car. We do them automatically, and we can't remember the last 10 minutes of our ride, what we did, how we signaled or turned or braked or changed gears or whatever it might be. And I think language learning is a bit like that. Let me think of some other things that relate to memory. I read somewhere that they did a test with two groups of 20 language learners. And the first group was given a list of 20, 30 words to learn, to study. And the second group was not given that list. Then they were asked to read a text. And there was no difference in the ability of these two groups to read this text. This was in the language that they were learning. And so what was being pointed out in that study was that being confronted with a lot of things to remember, we don't necessarily remember them very well. I have the experience when I read, sometimes for my Russian study, I'll read a play by Chekhov. And at the beginning of the play, they introduce all of the people who are in the play, the general and his daughter and so and his wife. And of course, as soon as I start reading the play, I can't remember who's who. I know that when I look up words in a dictionary, no sooner do I look up the words than I've forgotten what the meaning was. So I think memory is not a very good thing to rely on when speaking, sort of to review, because it's a bit like driving the car. You have to be able to produce these words and phrases automatically on the fly. When we're driving, I don't think we rely on memory. I don't think we try to remember something we read in a manual. When I'm reading the play, it's only after I've read the play quite a way through the play and I start to become comfortable with the characters in the play, occasionally referring back to the list of characters, that I become comfortable with who is who in the play. Similarly with words, it's only when I've seen the words in different contexts that they start to stick. So I think what we're dealing with in language learning is more a matter of establishing certain patterns in the brain so that initially things are new, primarily words and phrases, and gradually these become patterns. And the way the patterns are formed is I think it's a combination of the brain kind of absorbing a lot of input and starting to form its own patterns based on what it hears. But I think the brain also tries to rely on some logic that the brain has. And one good example is my favorite example of the third person singular in the present tense of English. It's the only one that changes. I go, you go, he goes. He went, they went, but he talks, she talks. So that always changes. And yet I would think that amongst even some very proficient speakers of English, even some native speakers of English, he don't go. People continue to make that mistake because the brain is saying, the pattern is that this should be the same as all the others. And it's very difficult to remember via memory that the third person singular is the only one that's different. So I see language learning more as a matter of gradually getting used to something and allowing the brain to form the necessary patterns. And this requires a lot of exposure.